Are you tired of hitting the wall during marathons, even after months of hard training? In this video, I'm interviewing a runner with a game-changing nutrition strategy that transformed their performance at the London Marathon in 2024. Welcome to today's video, where we're revealing a new way to fuel a marathon that could help you avoid the wall and run faster than ever before. Joining us is runner and triathlon coach Ant Gritton, who ran an incredible 2:27 at this year's London Marathon. He achieved this on a relatively low weekly mileage, whilst training as an amateur triathlete and working full-time. Previously, he ran a 2:52 marathon in 2014, but since incorporating a new method of nutrition, he ran a 2:30 last year and a 2:27 marathon this year. What impressed me most was that his marathon race pace was only marginally slower than his best half marathon race pace. And that's something you usually only see in high mileage runners who regularly clock 80, 90 or 100 miles per week in training, whereas Ant managed it on far less mileage than that. So in this video, we're going to learn how he prepared and the nutrition method that changed everything for him. Hi Ant, welcome to the MyProCoach YouTube channel. I just wanted to start off by asking you what a typical training week looked like for you while you were training for this marathon.
Yes, I mean, in a peak week, I'd be trying to run around 5 or 6 times a week. One of those sessions would always be a key interval session. So they were normally like fairly short reps, 2, 3, 4, maybe even 5-minute long reps, where I was trying to run clearly way above or way quicker than the marathon pace. I'd always make sure that I had my long run in there. And generally in the early days or early on in the program, that was just a steady long run. And as race day came up, they were much bigger or more focused towards marathon pace. So, you know, one of the key sessions would have been 10 by 8 minutes or maybe 10 miles at marathon pace. So there were sort of much bigger, much meatier sessions as I got closer towards the marathon itself. Around that was all easier runs. And of course, I always made sure that I was swimming and cycling as well, because my main goal this year is obviously to do a triathlon. So that was always included within the training plan as well.
So how much triathlon or swimming and cycling training were you doing in addition to the 5 runs or so that you're doing?
Yeah, so it was always 2 to 3 swims a week. My plan was to try and hit those 3 swims every single week, but to be honest, as I got deeper into the marathon training, I just found that I needed sleep more than I needed the 5 o'clock alarm call to get to the swimming pool. So as training progressed in terms of the running mileage going up and the running training going up, my swimming training did fall off a cliff a little bit. So I think in the last couple of months, I was hitting maybe 1 or 2 swims a week in that latter stages. For the cycling, I tried to make sure I was doing 1 easy ride in the week, and that was more as a recovery spin from doing the run sessions. And if I could get out at the weekend, if the weather was nice, and I'd go out and do a long ride. But obviously this marathon block happened throughout the British winter, so those long rides weren't as frequent as they maybe should have been.
Sure. And what do you think your range of weekly mileage was?
So my weekly running mileage was anywhere around 50 to 80k. Before Christmas, I was hitting around 90k. So this was, you know, over 20 weeks beforehand. But I actually managed to pick up an Achilles injury over Christmas. So this was, you know, 4 months, I guess, before the marathon. So I had to take that 4 weeks off. So when I got back into running again, obviously trying to rehab the Achilles at the same time, I was building back up around sort of 50 to 70 kilometers as my weekly running mileage, basically.
What does your nutrition look like then when you're training? Because I know you're quite into the nutrition side of things.
So yeah, my nutrition during my runs varies on depending on what the session I'm doing. So for my midweek runs, you know, if I'm going out for a steady base run, I might maybe have a gel or an energy tube before I step out the door. When I'm doing my key interval sessions, I'll generally carry a gel with me on that interval session. So I'll do my warm up, and then just before the start of the session, I'll take on an energy gel, just so that I'm used to taking on calories or carbohydrates during those high intensity efforts. I know what my body's going to be dealing with. That changes slightly as I get towards my long run. So if I'm going out for a steady long run, generally speaking, if it's at an easy pace, I'll be hitting around sort of 30 to 60 grams of carbohydrate an hour, which is, you know, maybe 1 to 2 gels every hour. But as the intensity of those long runs increased, so I was doing, you know, marathon paced efforts, for example, that's when I would then start to nudge the carbohydrate intake up a little bit. So trying to hit that kind of 90 to 100 grams an hour number, just so that I'm used to consuming that amount of carbohydrate whilst pushing the intensity that I want to on race day.
Sure. So you were in effect training your gut to tolerate higher levels of carbohydrate intake.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, and I don't know whether it's entirely linked, but previous years when I've so for Manchester Marathon last year, for example, I did have gut issues during that, and I've got a funny feeling it was because I wasn't used to hitting those number of carbohydrates during my training runs, whereas this year I was very strict on. I knew what number I wanted to hit on race day, therefore in the previous weeks before that, definitely in those sort of like last 6 to 8 weeks, I was making sure I hit that number on every long run that I was doing.
So let's talk about the marathon itself now. What did you eat in the lead up to your marathon in the last couple of days?
So in the last 48 hours, I tried to do a standard carbohydrate load. So in those last sort of 48 hours, the scientific recommendation is to hit around 8 to 12 grams of carbohydrate per kilogram of body weight. So for me, weighing 73 kilos, it's a lot of carbs you need to get in, and it's an uncomfortable amount to consume for 2 days. I know through measuring it on an app called MyFitnessPal that I had 11.3 grams per kilogram of body weight on the last 2 days, which is about 833 grams of carbs. So it's a lot of food. It's an uncomfortable amount of food. But having done that 3 times in the past, I know that I can stomach that amount of food, and I know that I can reap the benefits of that on event day as well. It just feels like I've got a lot more energy whilst I'm running because of that carbohydrate load. And essentially what you're trying to do is you're trying to overload your muscles with glycogen so you can then call on those stores during the run.
What did you eat for your breakfast on the morning of the race?
So yeah, breakfast is always is an interesting one. So in an ideal scenario, I'd be at home with my bowl of porridge, doing what I normally do in training. So because we were staying in a hotel in London, we only had access to a kettle in the morning. So actually what I did buy is like 2 like gluten-free porridge pots, so that I know there was no milk or any additives in there that I didn't want or didn't agree with me. So I tried them in training for a couple of times beforehand, so I knew that I could wake up, boil a kettle, make my porridge up very quickly in the morning, and then be out the door and on the start line basically. So yeah, 2 porridge pots in the morning, and I had an energy chew as well just beforehand.
How about the marathon itself on race day and during the marathon? What did you eat and drink then?
Yeah, so I try and follow a very, very simple strategy. I've been doing triathlon and marathons for quite a few years, and I know that if I've got a complicated strategy, I tend to either forget or just put things to the back of my mind. So for the last couple of events that I've been doing, I've been trying to reduce the number of gels I've been having just purely for the faff of grabbing them out of pockets and opening them and things like that. So what I've actually been using is something called a flow gel. So that's 10 energy gels in one, but I can then pour into something like this, like a soft flask. So I know that I can carry all of my gels in that and then just literally sip as I go. I can hold it in my hand, I can get the number of carbohydrates that I want to whilst in the middle of my flow. I don't have to think about reaching into my pocket and what to do with litter and things like that. So like I said, I want to try and make the strategy as easy and as simple as possible, and that was the easiest way I've found to do it so far.
Sure. And how about drinking? What did you drink during the race?
So for drinking, I actually carried another soft flask. So I actually carried another one slightly bigger than this one, which was filled with water. And I added to that a tablet of precision hydration. So I'm a very salty and very sweaty athlete. So I need to make sure that I've got plenty of sodium in my drinks so that I'm not getting dehydrated during those run sessions.
Sure. So that's quite a high sodium electrolyte mix in that drink.
It is, yeah. So this is like one of the highest strength ones you can get on the market. So each tablet, when mixed to the recommendations, will give you 1,500 milligrams of sodium. So on average, I think most people are around that 1,000 mark as a very, very rough number. But yeah, I go over that. So my official sweat rate is about 1,400 milligrams of sodium per litre. So I need the higher recommendation for that for myself.
Yeah. You carried everything you drank. You weren't picking up cups of water en route.
No, so I actually only grabbed 2 bottles out on the course, which I took a very quick sip from. I was actually trying to be very self-sufficient. So I had the 500ml soft flask, which was full of water and the electrolytes that I needed. And I had then the roughly 300ml soft flask full of gel. And then that was my strategy, apart from a couple of extra caffeine gels. So whenever I did reach an aid station towards the latter stage, when I run out of water in my soft flasks, I would grab a water and then literally just grab a quick sip out of those. And I think I might have used maybe 3, maybe 4 aid stations just to grab a quick sip of water. I'd actually planned prior to that to use more of the aid stations, but actually because it was quite a cool day, I felt that I didn't need them quite as much. And I also did carry some extra sodium capsules. You can buy these little sort of pills that are full of sodium to top up my sodium numbers if I needed, but I actually didn't use those in the end just because I wasn't drinking that much water.
Sure, so that sounds like a good strategy, but it also sounds like quite a lot of stuff to carry during the race. So how did you manage to carry all those things?
Yeah, I was obviously worried about the weight. You know, for years everyone's tried to be as light as possible on the marathon start line, and I totally get that. But I think the sacrifice of carrying those extra bits just gave me the extra peace of mind. I had a pair of trail shorts that I wore that have an elastic pocket on, you know, both of my legs, so I can actually fit both of the bottles in there. Now, when they're both full, it's uncomfortable to run with because obviously these are two, you know, quite heavy bottles that you're running with. So generally what I did is I made sure that one was in one leg and I carried the other one so that I could like sip on the go as much as possible. But yeah, weight is always a consideration, but I think it's more effective for me to have the fuel and the hydration that I need to finish strong than to be lighter and then fading towards the end because I've not fueled or hydrated myself adequately.
How much of your success in your marathon do you attribute to your nutrition and hydration strategy?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, a marathon is so much involved in the training that you do on, you know, in those months beforehand and maybe even the years beforehand. So obviously, that's a hugely important part of the equation. I'm not suggesting that, you know, taking on a lot of gels and a lot of, you know, hydration is gonna be the biggest game changer, but it does honestly play a huge part. I think the carb load combined with the amount of gels that I took on the day, it just gives you so much more energy and it does really help you, you know, find or dig to that deeper level to make sure that you can perform on race day. So it's a hugely important part of the strategy, but it's still the cherry on top, I'm afraid. You can't not train for a marathon.
And my final question, is there anything that you would change and do differently next time, or do you feel like you've cracked it with this nutrition and hydration method and that's what you'll stick with?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I wouldn't say that I've cracked it. I think there's always like little tweaks you can make throughout. I mentioned earlier that I probably could have drunk a little bit more water. I don't think that was, you know, a big hindrance. I don't think that's the difference between running a 225 and a 227, but that's the only thing really that when I think back, I didn't quite get right. I obviously carried the sodium pills or the electrolyte capsules, sorry, to take with me, but just didn't take them. So I think next time making sure that I took more of those on board would be beneficial to put to the strategy. Yeah.
So thank you to Ant, whose insights today have been incredibly valuable. Don't forget to check out my inexpensive marathon and triathlon training plans with coach support by clicking on the link in the description section below this video. If you're hungry for more videos on marathon running, check out the video on screen now or our playlist about improving your running to get more tips and advice. If you found this discussion helpful and would like to hear more stories like this, please like and subscribe to this channel and comment below with any questions you've got about this running strategy.